Today I will talk about the Snow White live-action movie controversy. In a time when fairy tales were pure, magical, and timeless, one of Disney's most beloved classics, Snow White, was created. Recently it was reimagined into something unrecognizable. Tonight, we explore how modern attempts to update a legacy ended up poisoning the original magic. This is the story of controversy, clashing ideologies, and creative decisions that alienated longtime fans. It began with a seemingly bold choice, casting Rachel Zegler, a talented Latina actress, as Snow White, a character whose very description once evoked the image of skin as white as snow. In the new movie, her name comes from surviving a snowstorm, which is lame. Critics argued that by straying from the classic vision of Snow White, the film dishonored the heritage of its source material. Instead of celebrating the timeless qualities of the original, the remake opted for a controversial update that served more to shock than to pay homage. While some defended the casting as part of a new commitment toward diversity, many believe that altering an iconic visual identity for political correctness was a misstep, a choice that disrupted the expected narrative magic of the original tale. Change can be invigorating, but when it comes at the expense of the story's essence, even a beloved narrative becomes unrecognizable. In interviews, Zegler criticized the original film for its dated approach. Yet turning a classic into what felt like an over-modernized spectacle only served to put off fans who cherished its gentle charm. The decision to reinvent Snow White's character, from a soft-spoken, innocent princess to a woman full of modern, overpowering ballads, missed the subtlety that made the original captivating. The creative liberties taken seemed less like an effort to evolve the tale and more like an unnecessary departure from the story's heart. The attempt to force a modern narrative onto a timeless fairy tale ended up alienating audiences rather than inviting them into a fresh era of storytelling. If the casting of Snow White was controversial, the choice to use CGI for the dwarfs proved equally disastrous. Rather than giving opportunities to actual actors with dwarfism, a community historically underrepresented, Disney opted for computer-generated imagery. Audiences quickly noted that the CGI dwarfs came off as eerie and unconvincing, robbing the story of the charm and realism that live-action adaptations can, and should, capture. It wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a blatant disregard for authentic representation. This creative shortcut not only stripped the film of genuine character depth but also underlined a troubling pattern, prioritizing budgetary convenience and safe modern edits over heartfelt authenticity and inclusiveness in the way it truly matters. In a bid to be more than just a cinematic experience, the film became a battleground for broader cultural and political debates. Rachel Zegler's pro-Palestinian social media posts and Gal Gadot's emphatic pro-Israel statements turned what should have been an escapist fairy tale into a polarizing political spectacle. When politics leaks so prominently into a family film, the narrative suffers. Rather than letting the story stand on its own, these divergent stances forced audiences to choose sides, even before the movie had a chance to speak for itself. It's as if the very magic of the fairy tale was sacrificed at the altar of modern ideology. The incessant political noise overshadowed any artistic merits the film might have salvaged, reducing a classic storyline into a series of public tweets and statements that neither honored its heritage nor served the artistic vision that cinema once aspired to create. In storytelling, especially in films meant for a broad audience, there is an expectation that political messaging should take a back seat to timeless themes of adventure, love, and morality. However, critics of Disney's live-action Snow White argue that the film, whether intentionally or not, echoes ideological themes that raise concerns. One prevailing critique is the way the new Snow White removes traditional elements of personal ambition and replaces them with collectivist ideals. Gone is the tale of a kind princess whose journey is shaped by love and resilience. Instead, the character is rewritten as someone who rejects traditional romance and embraces power structures that some argue align with socialist or even communist undertones. While this does not mean the film explicitly promotes communism, critics fear that modern entertainment is subtly shifting narratives in ways that alter foundational values, replacing self-driven heroism with collective-focused themes that obscure individual agency. The shift from personal growth to systemic struggle can unconsciously reinforce ideological perspectives that reflect current socio-political movements rather than preserving the timeless nature of fairy tales. While the remake may present the kingdom's collectivist structure as an ideal, a closer look reveals the potential downsides of such a system. The absence of individual ownership and personal ambition could lead to stagnation rather than prosperity. Additionally, the film's portrayal of a classless society may overlook the historical realities of communist governments, where centralized control has sometimes led to economic struggles, restricted freedoms, and authoritarian rule. By idealizing communal living without addressing its potential drawbacks, the film might unintentionally promote an unrealistic view of socialist principles. If the movie presents this structure as unquestionably positive, it raises important discussions about the balance between equity and individual freedoms. Some viewers may interpret this aspect as an endorsement of collectivist ideals, while others might see it as an oversimplification that ignores the complexities and historical failures associated with such systems. As discussions continue, audiences find themselves questioning whether entertainment should lean into modern messaging or remain true to its origins. Snow White, once an innocent tale about kindness overcoming cruelty, now finds itself entangled in debates over ideology, politics, and creative intent. Even the most lavish production cannot escape the consequences of poor creative judgment. With a production budget north of $250 million, the film's gross earnings languished around a disappointing $168 million worldwide. The numbers tell the true story of a film that was doomed from the start. Alienated fans, intense controversy, and a perceived betrayal of a cherished brand all contributed to a box office failure that has repercussions for future live-action remakes at Disney. The financial ruin isn't just about lost dollars, it's a public reminder that in the pursuit of modern relevance, the studio lost sight of what made Snow White a legend in the first place. There was once a time when fairy tales reminded us of hope and resilience. Today, Disney's misguided attempt to remake Snow White has not only altered an iconic image but also jeopardized a legacy built over decades. From ill-conceived casting choices and hollow modernization attempts to the cold, impersonal use of CGI and the unavoidable political crossfire, every decision seems to have chipped away at the innate magic of the tale. In reimagining a timeless classic, one should seek to enhance its beauty, not to rewrite it in the image of modern compromise. Disney's choices have served as a cautionary tale. When art is driven more by contemporary ideology than by respect for tradition, not even a poison apple can hide the bitter taste of lost wonder. As the credits roll on this modern tragedy, audiences are left to ask themselves, was the risk of modernization worth the irreversible damage done to a legacy? Only time will tell if future films can learn from these missteps or if the magic will forever remain tainted by these controversial choices. For those of us who grew up with the magic of genuine storytelling, this movie is a sharp reminder that some classics are best preserved in their original splendor. Perhaps the real lesson here is about balance, how to evolve art without sacrificing its soul. As debates continue, we encourage viewers to lean on the side of legacy, authenticity, and respect for artistic tradition.